All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torah Study. So this is our weekly look at the Torah portion. The Torah portion this week is Korach, and I will tell you, this is an explosive Torah portion. I mean, it's got everything. It's got fire. It's got earth swallowing people. I mean, like what else? What other kind of drama do you need for a parasha? It's got machloket. It's got dispute. It's got drama. It's got the whole package for a dramatic Torah portion. Okay, but I want to focus on, as you'll see, as we get through this lesson, we're going to focus on a very specific idea. And the idea, the way I'm framing it, is the idea of man versus machine, or human versus machine. So I want to share with you about a podcast that I just listened to. Okay, in case you're not afraid or not frightened by the future, you're about to be. Okay, so here, Toba, here you go. You ready for this one? Okay, so apparently there are companies, more than one, that have created the technology to do what's called facial recognition. Now, facial recognition sounds like, sure, everyone knows what that is. Okay, but here's where it gets a little crazy. The level of proficiency with this facial recognition is such that you can submit a picture of somebody with sunglasses or a face mask or their face partially turned. And this technology is so good that it can find matches. And they have collected, this company, there's a few companies that are behind this. One is Clearview AI. I think that's what it's called, Clearview. Anyway, there are companies that have collected, literally scraped from sites like obviously Facebook and Twitter/X and even Venmo, because people have profile pictures on Venmo, billions of pictures globally. And it literally collects and has, the data or the technology is mapping face and facial structures, et cetera. So you can feed it in a partial image, and it can spit out from across its database, which is huge. It can spit out matches, and there are many great applications and many frightening applications. Some of the great applications, if somebody is caught on camera committing a crime and law enforcement is not sure who this person is, you might be able to find them through someone else's Facebook or Twitter posts and picture and associate them. And I don't want to go too far into this, but it really got me thinking. And there's another application, actually okay. So here you go. Apparently in Madison Square Garden, the owners of Madison Square Garden are in litigation with some other company, law firms or whatever it is, and they have beef with some law firms. So literally, Madison Square Garden will not let in individuals that are on their do not enter list. So this reporter, the New York Times, goes with this lawyer who works for one of these firms that's blacklisted, and they have tickets, and there's thousands of people streaming in for an event or a concert. I don't know what it was, or a sporting event, whatever. They go in, and literally by security guard comes over and says, "Excuse me, I need to speak to you," and tells this woman she's not welcome. And the cameras are the ones that are identifying and instantly matching her up with this do not join. Hey, Yaakov, with this do not attend list. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because as technology advances, I think we're seeing more and more. There's different ways to look at it, but I want to frame it like this: dehumanization that's happening. And you see this, you might say, well, isn't this the opposite of dehumanization? If AI technology can help us identify faces, identify people, isn't that humanization? And I would say that maybe you could say that, but you could also say that it's reducing people to algorithms and face mapping, and that's dehumanizing. I will also say that the general notion that computers, technology can replace human beings and jobs, right? So like jobs that people were doing, jobs that people were doing that now can be replaced by ChatGPT or by other technology. Maybe not as good or whatever, but with enough computer learning, machine learning, who knows what the future can hold. I think what's the danger that can happen is the devaluing of human beings. In other words, if you value human beings based on what they can do, but then you create things that can do what human beings do, well, then the question is, well, then do humans have value? And that's an existential question, right? Do we have value only insofar as what we can do? In which case, well, maybe a computer can do it better. So if my prowess is that I can add numbers really quickly, guess what? Computers can do it way faster. So then what kind of value do I have? And I think this is a challenge to our humanity as technology advances, but it's also an opportunity to look a little bit deeper. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to look a little bit deeper into this question of what makes human beings and what creates our innate, our human value, and what is the end to this human versus machine race, as it were. I mean, I don't know if it's a race or not, but let's say it is. What do we do? So that's kind of like the opening preamble, and then the context is going to be the Torah portion. So let's now segue. Let's do a hard segue into the Torah portion. So the parsha this week is called Korach. Now, Korach is named after, the Torah portion is named after a guy who was, I don't know, I mean, I guess if you look at him in Torah, you would say he's a villain. Pretty nefarious, this guy Korach. Korach is a Jewish guy. He's a Levite, which means he's from a prominent family, from the family of Kahat, one of the three Levite families. And as we see in this Torah portion, he turns into the arch nemesis of Moses and Aaron, and he challenges their authority. And so there's a lot of questions that come up in the story. We're going to focus on a few particular questions, but it's going to touch on the overall question. The overall question is, what is going on in this dispute with Korach? What does he want? What's his deal? What's his beef? What's his end game? And why is it a dangerous philosophy to follow Korach? Okay, and we'll get into John Lennon tonight, Beatles, and other sorts of shenanigans. Okay, y'all ready? Let's do this. So we're going to start with text number 1. Yaakov, if you don't mind. Actually, hold on one second. Let me make sure the text 1 is the one that I wanted, being that I'm on a different page. Hold on. Yeah, this is great. It's actually text 1A. Hold on, give me one second. Let me just put this up on the screen so that everybody has access. 1 second. Hold on. I know it's here somewhere. All right, here we go. Okay, Yaakov, please take it away. Text 1A. This is toward the beginning of the Torah portion of Korach.
And they gathered against Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You take too much for yourselves. The entire congregation is holy, and God is in their midst. Why do you raise yourselves above God's people?"
Okay, so here we go. So it's important to understand the context. So Korach and his henchmen, we'll just henceforth call them henchmen, rabble-rousers. So Korach and his folks, spelunkers, cave explorers. Sure, why not? That works for me. I guess they caved into pressure. All right. So anyway, so Korach and his group of merry spelunkers. So, and who were they? So it was Korach. It was the guy. It was Dasan and Aviram. These were longtime troublemakers amongst the Jewish people. On ben Peles, he was initially part of the group of troublemakers, and then you had 250 people from the tribe of Reuben that also joined this, these shenanigans. So they gather against Moses and Aaron, and what's the claim? And so if you read the words as you just did, they say the entire congregation is holy. So why do you raise yourselves above God's people? In other words, the claim is very specific, and the claim is, look, everybody's holy. God loves everybody. Everybody is a piece of God, a child of God, whatever you want to call it. So why is there a hierarchy? Why is there leadership? Why do we need leadership? Right? Why do you raise yourselves above God's people? All of the people are godly. All of the people are children of God.
He's also a cousin of Moses and Aaron.
Correct. That's the crazy thing.
And they also knew that God asked Moses, and Moses refused for a whole week, and they knew that whole story. So God didn't raise himself over anybody.
Moses didn't raise himself. Right. Exactly. So number one, they're cousins. By the way, no one fights like family, right? I mean, that's like that's the other truism over here, right? Like no one knows how to fight like mishpacha. It's like you want to get like that's the real zingers come from those closest. So that's number one. Number two is what Yaakov just said, a very important point. Didn't they know that Moses had refused leadership and power? He didn't want it. From the get-go, he said, no, you got the wrong guy. I don't want him. I'm not interested. And God had to, proverbially twist his arm. Either they didn't know that or they forgot it. Convenient amnesia. But let's take a look at text 1b. And Yaakov, please continue in 1 second. This is going to be the continuation of the narrative and Moses' response, because not only is Korach's claim puzzling, well, equally so is the response that Moses gives to the complainers. Text 1b.
Moses spoke to Korach and his company. In the morning, God will make known who belongs to him and who is holy, and he will draw that person, the one who he will choose, near to him. This is what you must do, Korach and company. Take up your pans. Tomorrow, place fire in the pans and incense atop the fire before God, and the person that God will choose will be the Holy One. You took too much upon yourselves, children of Levi.
Okay, so here we go. So there's a lot of information in these few verses. So number one, I love the fact that they're called Korach and company, because it's just there's an alliteration there that works for me. Korach and co, maybe Korach and sons. Maybe the tagline for Korach and sons is it's kind of warm in here. I'm just saying, right, Jay? I mean, it's right with the platform and everything. It's getting toasty with Korach and co, Korach and sons. But anyway, I digress. So getting back to this point. So Moses is saying, look, essentially the answer is God is choosing who he wants, and he chose us, in other words, Moses and my brother Aaron. And tomorrow he's going to demonstrate. We're going to have a demonstration, not that type of demonstration. We're going to have a revelation, as it were, of who God has indeed chosen. So if you all think that for whatever reason he got the wrong people or whatever, so you take up fire pans, put incense and fire, and we'll see what happens. Now, we know the rest of the story. The rest of the story is that the 250 men from the tribe of Reuven that bring these fire offerings with the incense, the ketores. So fire breaks out, and they immediately die in a plague of fire. So again, this happens the next day. So they die in a plague of fire. What happens to Korach, Dasan, and Aviram? So they are swallowed. They and their households are swallowed by the earth, never to be seen again. Interestingly, Korach's sons, they get swallowed by the ground, but they somehow have a perch that they're able to be saved upon. That's according to Midrashic sources, and ultimately they survive, and they even write some psalms. The guy that I mentioned earlier, On Ben Peles, what's crazy about that guy? He was one of the Fab Four. Remember the Fab Four in Michigan? Who remembers it? Fab Five. Isn't it Fab Five? Anyway, so one of the initial rabble-rousers, On, his wife basically made sure that he stayed away from this whole, like when push came to shove, that he backed down from this thing. And indeed, our sages say, see what a good wife can do and save your life.
So Korach did not take up pans, but Moses said, Korach, take up pan.
Yeah, it wasn't he himself. I don't think he himself took the pan. I think it was the 250 people that were like priest wannabes. So it's like, all right, get a pan. So they all ordered. They went to William and Sonoma. They went there and they got the pans, the cast iron ones, the good ones, and that was it. Okay, so that's how the story ends. There's a few questions that come to a few very important questions. So first of all, if you just break down the dialogue, if you just break it down. So Korach first approaches and says, every one of the people and the entire nation is holy. God is in their midst. So why do you raise yourselves up above the congregation of God? And Moses answers, look, you know what? God is the one who decides, and God is choosing. Now, seems like, okay, a decent answer, but in truth, if you look at it a little bit more closely, he seems to be evading the question. The question is not whom did God choose? The question is, why do you need leadership at all if everyone is holy? So don't tell me, well, God did it. I mean, you could say that, but it's a little bit of a cop-out. In other words, if everyone is indeed holy, give me a philosophy, give me a worldview, right? That explains why leadership is needed if we're all holy. And Moses evades the question. He says, well, God's gonna let you know what's what. Okay, sure, but what about this valid question? Okay, that's point number one. Point number two is, I would bet that we all overlook this, but let's not overlook it for a second. Okay, I'm going to pull it back up on the screen. You guys take a look at this also here. Look at verse 7 on the top of 140. Okay, look what it says. It says, tomorrow, place fire into the pans. Tomorrow, in the Hebrew, machar. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, start with verse 5, even better. Moses spoke to Korach and his company. In the morning, God will make known who belongs to him, etc. In the morning, boker. In the morning. What? Why in the morning? Why not right now? What are we doing? What are we kicking this out to the next day? It's like, great question. And the answer is going to come tomorrow morning. It's like, okay, like, what are you like? What are you doing, David Copperfield? Like, what's up your sleeve, right? Like, are you like preparing something interesting to make some magic happen? Like, why do you need a day to pull this off? Okay, so the commentators ask these questions. Again, number one, Moses seems to evade or ignore the core question. The core question being, why is there need for any leadership? By Moses saying, well, God chose, that's not answering the question, why leadership if everyone's holy? And second question is, why does say boker, tomorrow morning? We'll figure this out. Why not answer the question today? Especially considering that in the span, in that overnight span or that day and however many hours were left between that moment and the next morning, all that stands to happen is people are going to get more excited about the rebellion. People are going to get more, riled up and create more chaos. So better deal with it now. So let's take a look.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Rabbi. What's curious to me is they've already been in the desert. They've already gotten the Torah at Sinai. So it's been, Moshe and Aaron have demonstrated their leadership, taking them out of Egypt. And it's why all of a sudden, and they had the whole thing with the quail and the food and everything.
Yeah, but doesn't this come right after the sin of the spies from last week, Shlach? And you could look at this another
there's
way.
A question.
They're like, say, hey,
it's a
you said we were going to the land of milk and honey, and we ain't there.
Yeah, no, good. You're right.
There's a machlokus whether or not it was after the spies or after at the time when Miriam got Cyrus.
Right.
They were still in Hatzroses.
So you have a dispute, at least in the order, but Dr. Mack's saying at least in the order in which it appears, you do have an interesting answer. The fact that now their journey has been kicked out for another 39, 40 years, now people are getting a little antsy, and now it's like, all right, now we're really going to dig into the complaints. No, it's a good question. It's a good question. Look, I would say that, when we look at this thematically, as we will do tonight, we might see that there's some conceptual reasons why the question, Korach's dispute, comes up here. But at the core, you could ask the question, what's this Korach come lately? I mean, like Moses was appointed years ago. So like, what's up with that? Yeah.
So if, I don't know, is that Jay?
Yeah.
Said, if they think that changed things because now, all of a sudden we messed up because we're not going to, well, who messed up? The leaders of every single tribe. So the 12 leaders messed up. It wasn't Moses that messed up. It was the democratic process put the decision-making into the hands of the dummies.
So okay. So Yaakov is right. So Yaakov is saying, hold on one second. Even if this comes on the heels of the spies teach us that when Moses delegates, things go bad. In other words, Moses is now like, okay, maybe we should just stick to the one guy who's actually speaking to God, which then brings the question back as to what was Korach's problem, was his complaint. Okay, all of these are excellent points. I will say this, tonight we're going to go in one angle, one very specific and I think highly engaging angle. But look, a lot of the questions that are being asked and the points that are being discussed right now, this is incredible, like great dialogue. And the commentaries literally, are touching on all these questions and more. And I think, there's not one answer. to these questions. A lot of perspectives. As Jay said, there's a machloket, there's a dispute as to when in the timeline this story even happened. It's not so clear, because we know that even the events as written in Torah in that order are not necessarily chronological. So anyway, so let's keep the questions semi-open. I try to give some points around it, but I don't want to by any means say there are any definitive answers, because there's so many different perspectives. But I want to draw your attention to text number 2, because here we have a very interesting midrash. Now, the midrash explains the second question that I asked. Why does Boker? Why does Moses say, oh, tomorrow we're going to deal with this? Why not today? What's with it tomorrow? So let's take a look. Toba, please read text number 2. Give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. And let's take a look-see. All right, take a look. Yeah.
Moses told them, God demarcated boundaries in his world. Can you substitute day for night? God set the boundaries with, and there was evening and there was morning. And God distinguished between the light and the darkness for the orderly functioning of the world. As God separated the light from the dark, so did he distinguish the Jews from other nations. As the verse states, I will distinguish you from the nations to belong to me. Similarly, God distinguished Aaron from all other Jews. As the verse states, he distinguished Aaron to consecrate him, holy of holies. As you can't undo the distinction between day and night, so can't you undo this distinction. This is why Moses told them, in the morning, God will make known.
Okay, thank you. So this is a powerful midrashic interpretation of Moses' response to Korach, where he says, Boker, in the morning, God is gonna show us what's going on. Why in the morning? That itself is the answer to the question. Korach is saying, and this answers the first question that I asked. Korach is saying, I don't get it. Why do you need any leadership? Why the hierarchy? Everyone's holy, power to the people. And Moses says, have you ever heard of morning? You know what morning is, right? Why didn't God just create one flat element of time? No day, no night, just time, monolithic, just time. That's your suggestion, that everyone's the same, everyone's a leader, or everyone is godly, and there's no distinction, there are no edges in this world. Like there's no diversity. Boker, says Moses, the morning. Guess what the morning is? Different than night, right? You have night and then you have day, and you have different segments of time. So just like you have no problem, you're not like raising your fist and turning to the sky and saying, why is there day and night? I don't like this. It should be one thing. Just choose one. And that's, no one's saying that. You get it, that there's distinction and difference. Just like there's a difference between, the Torah given to the Jewish people and the charge given to all of humanity. Just like there's a difference between, I could keep on going, but like various segments in general, so too there's a difference between Aaron and the people, a Kohen, the Yisrael, an Israelite, the high priest, etc. Moses himself, although he's not going to speak about himself in such terms because he was humble like that, but certainly that would apply to him as well. In other words, the response, the answer to question 2, I asked 2 questions. The answer to the second question is the answer to the first question. The second question was, why is Moses kicking this out to the morning? And the answer is because the morning itself alludes to the answer to the core question. The core question is, why is there leadership? The answer is because people are not the same. And just like there's day and there's night and they're not the same thing, so too people aren't the same, and that's okay. I was going to say the Rebbe spoke about this often, but not in this parable that I'm about to give, or analogy. It's like a football team. I don't think the Rebbe used this one, but not everyone can be the quarterback. It's just, you can't have a team of 11 quarterbacks.
$50 million guys.
Also fit, right. You can't have $50 million to 11 unless you're the Yankees. I know, wrong sport. I'm just saying, like, you can't have 11 quarterbacks at the same time. Now, Atlanta Falcons can. I'm kidding. That's a Falcons joke because of the quarterback situation. But my point is, the Falcons notwithstanding, it's like you need. Why is there a quarterback? Says the running back. We're all the same. We're all equal. Sure, on the one hand, yeah, you're all members of the same team and all integral parts of being a team, but you're not all the same. There's going to be a quarterback. There's going to be, the guys on the line, the guys in the trenches. No, we're talking about football. It's not even football season. But like the offensive linemen, told you my story about meeting the offensive lineman of the Steelers. I mentioned this. Once met the offensive line, the W in Buckhead, years ago. Leigh and I, like, we don't go out that often, but when we do, I mean, like just the two of us. So one night we're like, we're gonna go to the W in Buckhead. They have this like little lounge upstairs on the top floor. Yeah, on the top floor. We'll chill. We have babysitter or whatever. Maybe somebody family was in. Whatever. We go there, show up. Nope, the whiskey lounge or whiskey bar, whatever it was called. Nope, it's closed to the public. Gotta be kidding me. Private party. I'm like, who's throwing a private party? Hines Ward. I'm sure I've told this story. Hines Ward, former Steeler at that point, an active Pittsburgh Steeler from Georgia, played for the Bulldogs. So anyway, so he's throwing a private party for his teammates in the W Buckhead. I'm like, actually, this is cool. So like I went from being annoyed to being like, very intrigued. But sitting at the bar downstairs in the lobby bar, where us, I don't know, common folk were allowed to enter, these two very large men. When they stood up, they were even larger. These guys.
So you never got up there. They came down the elevator.
I met Hines Ward. Hines Ward also came down. Yeah, no, these guys were just sitting there. I guess they probably didn't want to like hang out with. Yeah, downstairs. And then Hines Ward came down. I have a picture with him. I don't know where that picture is. My long story short, these guys were so big, like just huge. I'm like, you have chosen the right occupation. Like, if there's anyone that could block another very large person, I think it's you. Anyway, the point is, not typecasting. I'm just saying, like, it makes sense.
You look strong.
You look strong. You should do this for a living. You should make a lot of money at it, and take care of your health also. That was those were my parting words, if I would have said that. Okay, so what's the point? The point is that not everyone can be a quarterback. You need a team. And so Moses is saying, look, there's morning. It's not just tomorrow morning we're going to resolve this. There's a thing called morning, and it's not night, and that's okay. Not everything is the same. And we accept that. Not everything is the same. Not everyone is the same. So Korach, take it easy, bro. You know that not everything is the same. You know that day is not night, night is not day. So take it easy. So that was the answer.
And our Constitution is wrong too. Not all men are not created equal.
I presume that
All-
means equal rights.
Equal
Right.
rights.
Equal rights.
And all
Right.
men, all women are not men.
Right. Also, right. And so good. So these are some of the areas that we're going to touch on tonight. Good. So now let's move. Let's continue. Let's move this. There's going to be a lot of pieces to this, and I want to kind of draw everything out in a logical way. Because if we view this, to be very, I want to do justice to the complexity and to not the complexity, but to the nuance here. Because if we view this as simply Korach didn't see any difference, he said, nope, no diversity. Whereas Moses says, no, diversity is good. The problem is then we have other verses that seem to contradict this. Let's take a look at text 3a. You'll see what I mean in a second. Take a look at text 3a. In other words, my point is that it's not so simple, even from the Moses Torah view. Text 3a is from the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, the beginning of the Torah portion of Nitzavim. And this is actually Moses himself speaking. All of you are standing today before your God, the leaders of your tribes, your elders and your officers, every Jewish person. And that is Moses speaking about the unity that was taking place on that day. Take a look at the Midrash 3b. Even though I appointed leaders, elders, and officers over you, you are all equal in my eyes. As the verse says, every Jewish person, which means, one second, hold on. Is there difference, distinction, diversity, or not? So although I appointed leaders, elders, and officers, you're all equal in my eyes. Well, is it equal or different, or can there be both? Now, the magical answer would be both, but what does that mean? And so again, I want to do justice to this topic by paying attention to the nuance, and I think to the subtlety that exists in Jewish thought. And to do this, we're going to go on a journey, on a historical journey through the beginnings of Torah, from the earliest stories, the earliest biblical tales. And I want to present, at least I'm going to try to do the best of my ability, present like the big Jewish take on the topic of individualism versus universality. Like,
Yeah.
this, do we focus on the individual? Do we focus on the universal? And if the answer is both, then where do we strike that balance? So the first thing we're going to do is, Ray, I don't know if I said hi to you. Ray, hi. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, and Merle, I don't think I said hi. Hi. Okay, so we're going to look at the
And
history.
Mom.
Oh, and Mom. Yes, of course. Hi. So the first thing we're going to do,
Mom?
huh?
How could you forget?
I didn't forget. No. Did
No,
not forget.
I joined late.
All right. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the history of diversity. In other words, where do the nations split into different people, different languages, etc.? And I think we all know the story, but let's read this. Let's do the text. I'm going to read a bunch of texts in rapid succession at least, and let's go through this. Text 4, Deuteronomy. So here's a historical review. When the Supernal One gave each nation its lot, when he dispersed the people, he demarcated the boundaries of nations. Okay, so it goes on. So here we have this idea that there was a certain point in time when God dispersed people, separated and demarcated the nations. Okay, that implies that before that point in time, right, there's the when. Before that when, everyone was one people, one family. And then at another point in time, each one got its lot, the people were dispersed, and boundaries were demarcated. So when did this happen? According to all the commentaries, and we know this from the biblical narrative, this happens all the way back. It's a reference to the story in the book of Genesis, chapter 11, not that chapter 11, but chapter 11 of the book of Genesis, and it speaks about the story of the Tower of Babel, the Tower of Babylon or Babylonia. What's the story? Here's how the Torah introduces it. And the entire earth, this is after the flood. So post Adam and Eve and post Noah and the great flood that wiped out civilization, and Noah and his family repopulate the earth. So the Torah tells us, and the entire earth was one language and uniform words. So Safa Echat, that means one language. Dvarim Achadim, uniform words. People were on the same page. Take a look at what happens.
Which was a big problem.
Which apparently was a big problem. Take a look at the next text. It came to pass when they traveled from the east that they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. And apparently they try to wage war against God by building this tower. As to how the tower would have waged war against God, that is a subject of a lot of debate. But nonetheless, that aside, let's focus on what happens as a consequence or to resolve this issue. Text 5c. Here's a few verses later. Here's what the Torah tells us. And God said, behold, they are a single people with a common language. And this is what they've commenced to do. You're going to build a tower? What's up with that? Again, why that's a problem? All right, we'll leave that for the commentaries. But that's what God says to himself, as it were. Come, he says, probably to the angels, let us descend and confuse their language, so that one will not understand the language of their companions. And God scattered them from there upon the face of the entire earth, and they ceased building the city. They were building a city with a tower. They called it Seattle. I'm kidding. They were building the city. That's the only city I can think of with a tower in the moment. And then God says, no, not going to happen. I don't like this. And God disperses them. This becomes the origin of the 70 nations of mankind, the initial 70 nations, which of course, subsequently in the last, 4,000 years plus has, diversified further into many, many, many nations and languages, etc. But initially, the initial division was into 7. So clearly, what we see here from this narrative is that, number one, before this episode, the people are unified. And let me just explain that for a quick second. Remember, this is after the story of the flood. And the only human beings that survive the flood are Noah and his children. So Noah and his wife and their 3 sons and their respective wives. So 8 people survive. And you can imagine, and okay, I know what you're thinking. How'd they repopulate the earth? How'd that, okay, whatever. How that happened, we'll save for another time. But bottom line is, they repopulated the earth, and now you have essentially a unified humanity. And they know the cautionary tale of the flood. They kind of know that. It's in their history. It's like, yeah, when it rains, you might want to build an ark. You might want to have one at the ready. So that's that. But what happens is that they use their unity for less than desirable purposes, whatever that was. And God says, this is not good. This is not good. We're going to diversify. We're going to split people up. On the surface, it's because of divide and conquer. It's like it's easier to deal with a problem when you break it down and when you kind of split. So it's not a unified offense. It's not a unified front. So you break up the front, you break it up into smaller pieces, and now you can attack it better. So that's the basic way of understanding it. But another way to understand it is that essentially the issue is universality versus individualism. That's literally the issue at hand, is that the people are saying we should all be one, live in one city with one tower, right? All wear the same clothes, right? Sounds like a cult. Who does that, right? It's all unified, all monolithic. And God says, no, that's an affront. I created a world of diversity, and diverse it must be. And so that is what we are looking at. Now, along these lines, we can say that what is it that so offended God? It's not that they were going to use the tower as a launching pad to try to wage war against the heavens, as it were, literally. But it means that by sticking so closely together, they were denying their individualism. God wanted individuality. God wanted diversity. If everyone starts acting and behaving like each other, that's not cool. That's like what TikTok is for, right? TikTok, everyone does the same dance. It's like this, God wants a little diversity. So text number 6, we're trying to cover all of our pop culture reference points today. So text number 6, take a look at this one right over here. I'm gonna read this. This is, no one writes like Rabbi Sachs. Oh my gosh, this guy, this unbelievable. Text 6. What a great loss to the Jewish world when he passed away in 2020. Okay, today we are inclined to see resurgent tribalism as the great danger of our fragmenting world. That line itself needs explanation. He wrote this in 2003, which is shortly after 2001, right? 9/11, 2001, right? Mm-hmm. So he wrote this shortly after 9/11. And, everyone's talking about tribalism and, religious fanaticism. Okay, he says, yeah, that's one danger. It is, but it's not the only danger. The paradox is that the very thing we take to be the antithesis of tribalism, universalism, can also be deeply threatening and may be equally inadequate as an account of the human situation. A global culture is a universal culture. And universal cultures, though they have brought about great good, have also done immense harm. They see as the base of our humanity the fact that we are ultimately the same. We are vulnerable. We are embodied creatures. We feel hunger, thirst, fear, and pain. We reason, hope, dream, aspire. These things are all true and important, but we are also different. Each landscape, language, culture, community is unique. Our very dignity as persons is rooted in the fact that none of us, not even genetically identical twins, is exactly like any other. Therefore, none of us is replaceable, substitutable, a mere instance of type. This is what makes us persons, not merely organisms or machines. It is our commonalities. If our commonalities are all that ultimately matter, then our differences are distractions to be overcome, and that is not healthy and not kosher. Again, think of it this way. If we value values in the universal, that means that we stop seeing people as individuals. So like, for example, in the realm of medicine, we stop seeing patients as individuals and we see them as just patients, as just a number, as just, I don't even know what the
15-minute time slot.
15 minutes, as just a 15-minute time slot to move through.
If you're lucky,
right? So this is where, I don't know if we call this commodification of human beings, but it's where the humanity is reduced. And look, I'm big into unintended consequences. There might be people saying, no, look, when everyone has their own religion and their own land, look how many fights it creates. So let's all be universal. After all, aren't we all the same? Don't we all, right? What's that? if you cut me, shall I not bleed? What is that, a line from somewhere? I don't even know. Yeah.
Shylock.
Sure.
It's
Shylock?
Shylock.
Oh, Shylock.
Shylock.
Oh, well, okay. Maybe not such a Jew-friendly tale. But anyway, I digress. The point is that, like, yeah, so people are like, oh, particularism is not good. Nope, that breeds enmity, that breeds hate, that breeds avarice, that breeds, fighting and killing. And look what happens with tribalism. It's no good. So then what's the other option? Universalism. Great. We're all one. Cue up John Lennon. What was John Lennon's song? Imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine all the people, right? Imagine. I don't know the rest of the verses, but imagine. Imagine if there were no distinctions. If we were all one, we all wore white robes. Didn't John Lennon wear white robes at some point in time? I don't know. Seems like he could have if you wanted to.
I think they all did.
They all did in the 60s. All right, whatever. Anyway, the point, he had the John Lennon glasses, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, hence the name. And Moses was in a Moses basket. Anyway, my point is like this. My point is simply,
My point is, there is no point.
yeah, there is no point. Gotcha. No, the point is that, like, the perspective that particularism is what destroys us. Okay, so what's the other option? Universalism. Then you're destroying the very nature and the fabric of what makes human beings unique. What you're saying is you don't value as a person. Your only value is insofar as you are a machine, a cog in the wheel, just another number, faceless, nameless, a part of this larger truth. And by the way, if you get in the way, a comrade, and if you get in the way of what we deem as universal values, then sorry, we have no use for you anymore. That's the danger of turning people into machines. Because you know what you get when you have machines? Perfect replicas. When you're dealing with machines, perfection. Everything looks the same. I know you can create different looking machines. I know. I'm just saying, when you're dealing with that level, right, everything's perfect. The calculator always gets it right. Same answer. Texas Instruments, I don't know if they still make calculators. Back in the day, they did. Right? You buy two calculators, punch in the same numbers, you're going to get the same result. Two different machines, they all operate the same. Human beings, they all make different mistakes. Give two people the same test, they'll make different mistakes, different answers. Plenty of diversity there. My point is, and this is not my point, this is Rabbi Sachs, I'm just trying to bring it home, is that, yeah, there's a lot of problems with, fighting over your turf of land and your belief system. Sure, that's a problem that, we need to work on. But at the same time, saying that therefore strip humanity, strip human beings of their culture, religion, belief system, and other things that make them uniquely human, uniquely them, that's not any better. That's equally as dangerous, if not even more dangerous. Now, speaking of this, the Rebbe once spoke to Mayor David Dinkins, Mr. David Dinkins, mayor of New York City. Now, if you know the history of Crown Heights a little bit, so you know that in 1991, there were major riots that happened. In fact, wow, how deep should we get into this? I'm not going to get so deep. I just want to tell you the quick story of the Crown Heights riots. So the Rebbe used to visit the cemetery, Old Montefiore Cemetery in Queens, to visit the gravesite of his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe. And he would go there quite often. And then his wife was buried there. So 1991, he was either on the way there or on the way back to the cemetery from Crown Heights. And there was a bit of a procession, like the Rebbe's car, and then there was like some other guys. And one of the other cars following the Rebbe's car lost control. Either brakes didn't work or whatever it is, lost control, jumped a curb, struck a boy, and killed the boy. African-American boy. That a mob circled the car and attacked the driver, first responders. It got heated, and that spun into riots in the summer of 1991 that went on for, I don't know, a little while. I don't know if it was days or weeks. I forget already. I mean, but anyway, those are the Crown Heights riots. So Mayor David Dinkins visited the Rebbe at that time, and here's what the Rebbe said vis-a-vis the situation.
There were stresses before that, right?
Yeah.
Conflict was brewing.
100%. I listened to a few podcasts on that, which makes me an expert. Once you listen to a podcast on something, that's like, then you know everything on it. No, but there was a lot of cultural and also societal tensions. Yeah, it didn't come out of nowhere. Text 7a. Okay, here's what the Rebbe says to Mayor Dinkins. There is a multitude of nationalities in New York. It is a melting pot for many nations. May all these nations live in good peace and in harmony, and every single one of them will strengthen all the nationalities around them. And here you see the Rebbe's view, which is that it's not universalism. It's not about, no one should be who they are. No, be who you are, be proud of who you are, and respect the other guy for being who they are. You be proud and respect the other guy for being proud of who they are. Now, obviously, it requires civility and law and order.
We can't really respect what's going on now with radical Islam.
No, right. So 1 second. So So respecting doesn't mean that you respect, those that are trying to kill you, or those that are seeking terror in the world. But it means by and large respecting the other and not losing your individualism and not seeking to strip away that of the other guy either.
So we still need shared values, even though we're different cultures,
correct,
different tribes.
And that's
what's missing.
Let me repeat that in case. So Yaakov is saying we still need shared values, like universal shared values, even as we have particular distinction. Text 7b.
And Lord Sachs was hoping, well, he didn't say it, but what he was implying is that, without culture, you're going to lose your values. So keep your culture and keep the good part of your culture, not the violent part of your culture, the part about Islam that is, good.
So take a look at 7b. I'm going to read this. 7b is where Rabbi Lord Sachs explains that it's only through your connection to the particular that you can then the universal can resonate. Take a look at what he says. We are part of a thick or context-bound morality which confers on us loyalties and obligations to the members of our community that go beyond mere justice. We have duties to our parents and children, friends and neighbors, and the members of society considered as an extended family, the loving obligations we owe to those with whom we are linked in a covenantal bond. It is precisely these moral intimacies that give life to the families and communities in which we learn the grammar and syntax of reciprocity and altruism. I mean, who writes like this? This guy's amazing.
Maybe the Rav, Soloveitchik, and then this guy came along.
Yeah.
After that, it was
the universality of moral concern is not something we learn by being universal, but by being particular. That's the line. That's the line to highlight right there. I'm going to read it again. The universality of moral concern is not something we learn by being universal, but by being particular. And he explains, because we know what it is to be a parent, loving our children, not children in general. We understand what it is for someone else, somewhere else, to be a parent, loving his or her children, not ours. In other words, because you love your kids in a particular way, you can understand how someone else loves their kids in a particular way.
Yeah.
Right? That's what he's saying. There is no road to human solidarity that does not begin with moral particularity. By coming to know what it means to be a child, a parent, a neighbor, a friend, we learn to love humanity by loving specific human beings. There is no shortcut. I mean, that's just like a slow clap standing ovation. That's unbelievable what he's saying. The universal values are driven by the particular values, as it were. I don't know if I'm saying this as articulately as it was written. I'm not, but the point is that, you can't, what does it mean? I love everybody. Imagine someone says, I love my kids, no different than I love, the concept of, I love the stranger as myself. You don't love your kids anymore? No, it's a mitzvah to love everybody. So equal love, right? Equal love for all. Equal love? You don't love your kids a little bit more? Nope. That would be showing favoritism, not a drop more. Okay. Is that an ideal according to Rabbi Sachs? Absolutely not. Because once you get rid of the particular love, then you will no longer have a society that has universal love either. Universal love is the love that is modeled after the particular love. You can't jump that love and say, no, I just love everybody. You don't even know what it means to love. You have to love those that are close before you can love those that are far. That's why it says, love the other as yourself. You have to know what it's like to love yourself, to love your family, to love your neighbor, as it were, before you love the stranger, the person that you haven't yet met. It doesn't mean that universal values are not values, What it means is that that should never erode, take away from, etc., the particular. Now, all of that is one angle on it, or maybe a few angles we've covered. But let's get into another angle. Let's keep on building this idea in the debate or the tension between the particular and the universal. Because we know that God created the one God. God is one, but the one God created diversity. Take a look at text. Now let's just do it. Text 8a. We're gonna do again rapid fire. Let's get a few things in. Text 8a. Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, chapter 5 says, God created the world with 10 utterances, though he could have created it with a single utterance. What that means, there are 10 times in the story of creation in Genesis where the Torah relates that God said, and it was. So God said, let there be light. God said, let there be a firmament. God said, let there be vegetation. God said, let there be sun, moon, and stars. God said, and it was. Great. Says the Mishnah, why 10? He could have just said 1. Let there be a world, and that would have included everything. The answer is because a world created with a single utterance would be monolithic and universal. A world with 10 utterances, diversity. Text 8b. Not only 10. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, 10 utterances is only 10. You're telling me there's only 10 things? Now, from that 10, it's like every musical composition ever written on the same 7 notes, right? So once you have a certain amount of building blocks, you can create anything. Just ask the fine folks at Lego. Text 8b. Look at what, all right. Again, we're just trying to cover all our bases. Next is Barbie. Oh, that was last year. Text 8b. The word stone, so ask the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad. He says the word stone does not appear in the 10 utterances that are recorded in the Torah. So in other words, where do stones come from? 10 utterances. I don't see God saying, let there be a stone. Where's the stone? How do you get a stone?
Or soil.
Or soil, or yeah, he's just using one example. He says, nevertheless, the letters of these utterances form permutations, substitutions until the word stone is formed. In other words, the entire narrative of creation where God said, let there be whatever. So it's all born of almost spoken language or characters, letters. And so you take those letters and recombine, not you and I, but God recombines those letters and creates more items, right? So the letters form permutations and substitutions until the word stone is formed. This word constitutes the vivifying force of a stone. Look, this is Shaykh V'Emunah. This is like high-level Kabbalah stuff, and we've covered this in some other classes, but not for right now, not with 5 minutes left of the class. So, but the point is just very simply that the one God employs a tremendous amount of diversity in creation using 10 core building blocks that then subdivide into the literal myriad or infinite number, I don't know, infinite, whatever, highly large number of diverse creatures that exist and have existed on planet Earth and beyond. I sound like Buzz here. So text 8a we just did text 8a and text 8b. So this is a reminder that God wants us to be particular and unique. If God didn't, he would have stopped with one utterance. If God wanted you and I to be the same person, he could have also done that. But he created one of each, me and you. Why? Because God has something for us. Oh, I skipped top of 146. That's okay. Text 9. Here we go. Here's how the Rebbe brings us home. God's creation is complete and purposeful when we each use our unique strengths to fulfill the purpose for which we were created. In other words, you and I, none of us have the same exact mission. Yeah, generally speaking, make the world a better place, a more godly place. Sure, absolutely. But specifically, each of us has a specific mission and specific talents for that. When we fail to fulfill the task for which we were designed, and instead fulfill a task that was assigned to another, we disturb the order of creation. If anybody says, oh, let me live the life of, I don't know, the Kardashians, I'm kidding, right? If everyone's like, oh, I'm going to live someone else's life. Okay, I think it was Mark Twain or somebody who said, second time quoting Mark Twain tonight, that's There should be like a bell that we ring when that happens. And I think he said something along the lines of, be yourself, everyone else is taken. And I think that's kind of the point over here. It's like you are an individual. God created you to be you. Only you, well, can prevent forest fires, but only you can be, which is also true, only you can be who you were meant to be created to be. You and I, right? But you, let's just talk about you, because it's all about you, right? You were created by God through a permutation of one of the 10 utterances, through a combination of letters that was never replicated before or since. That is it. You have a unique code, not just genetic code, spiritual code, spiritual DNA, right? So that's like, it's unique to you. Don't sell it out for this universalism fantasy of like, no, we're all the same, we're all equal. Equality or fairness, yes, that is important. And no one's saying, we're not talking about prejudice here, but the concept of losing sight of who you are. I can't be proudly Jewish because we should be proudly everyone, all humanity. Also, but it's okay to be proudly Jewish. That's okay also. And you won't be able to celebrate the other guy if you can't celebrate yourself. That's really the key idea, right? If you can't celebrate yourself, then why are you going to celebrate the other guy? You're not celebrating in general. I got to share this. I think we'll just do like one more point. So beautiful. Again, Jonathan Sachs, hashtag obsessed with his writings. I want to say this. Platonic forms, are we familiar with Platonic forms? Yeah, Platonic form. He basically says that when it comes to beauty, so let's say a tree, you know, you go outside and you see a tree, you're like, oh, it's a tree. Is it really a tree? And what's the thing next to it? Also a tree.
Good tree, or is it a really bad version of the ideal?
Oh, so 1 second. So you see, but that's also a tree. 1 second. These two things don't look the same. Why are you calling? I'm just going to keep on doing this. Why are you calling both of them a tree? Oh, because there's this original pure form of tree, right? That's like the ideal with the music and the light, right? That we're like, oh, that's tree, and everything else is a wannabe, paling in comparison, either better or worse replica of tree. But the goal is to go from the particular to the universal, to go from the one tree to, right, as we evolve. This is what Plato said. As we evolve, as we get older, we discover that beauty is found not in the particular, but in the perfect abstract, not so abstract, but in the perfect form of tree, the universal definition of tree. And what Rabbi Sachs is about to say, and this is how we're going to conclude tonight's class, is that the story of the Torah is exactly the opposite. We start off with the universal, Adam and Eve, Noah and the flood, right? The big universal stories of all of humankind. And then it slowly focuses Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, 12 tribes, Moses, the children of Israel. It narrows down. It goes from the universal, all of humanity, to the particular, the children of Israel.
And there's Plato also going from universal to particular, because he said, you know, at first there was the ideal tree, the template of the tree. And then everything else are permutations, but they're not the true original.
Yes, but Plato says, you're right, that the evolution is from the universal to the particular with trees. But Plato says that the goal is to get back to the universal, to get back to the, because this is all like, it's all fake news. Like, that's the holy grail. Okay, right. Strange. So 1 second. So that's his. Whereas Torah is telling us the opposite. Yeah. The holy grail is to get to the particular. Let's read this inside again, as only Rabbi Sachs can write. Text 10. The Hebrew Bible starts by telling a story about humanity as a whole. Its first 11 chapters are about Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, Noah and the flood, Babylon its tower, archetypes of humanity as a whole. By any conventional standard, the order of these stories is precisely wrong. They begin with universal humanity and only then proceed to the particular. One man, Abraham, one woman, Sarah, one people, their descendants, the Jewish people. By reversing the normal order and charting instead a journey from the universal to the particular, the Bible represents the great anti-Platonic narrative in Western civilization. Look at that. Anti-Platonic narrative. That's what the Torah is. Look at that. Against Plato and his followers, the Bible argues that universalism is the first, not the last phase in the growth of the moral imagination. The goal is not to get to the universal, but to get to the particular. We can now state what Judaism represents in the history of Western thought. The story of the covenantal people begins with two journeys, Abraham and Sarah from Mesopotamia, and Moses and the Israelites from Egypt. Mesopotamia in the days of Abraham, and Egypt in the days of Moses. In the age of Moses were the supreme economic and political powers of their time. Judaism has historically been a living alternative to empires, because imperialism and its latter-day successors, totalitarianism and fundamentalism, are attempts to impose a single regime on a plural world, to reduce men to man, cultures to a single culture, to eliminate diversity in the name of a single socio-political order. And that,
great.
he's awesome. Who writes like this?
And
And
that's what the
when
world
did
is-
he write?
So clear. He wrote at 2003, same book.
In the Rich and Famous.
Just get that book. It's called The Dignity of Difference. That's like the whole idea comes from this book. Anyway, what were we saying?
Like supposedly that's where we're headed. That's where the powers that be want.
Yeah.
They want a
Universal.
universal
Right now.
monetary source.
Yeah.
Everything.
5 areas of the world,
Yeah.
everything controlled so that the rich can really keep
Yeah.
a lot more money because
Yeah.
they don't have enough money.
So look, this is what Torah, I mean, not the only thing that Torah is standing up against, but this is one of the things that Torah testifies against. Torah stands for the journey from the universal to the particular. And that's founded on not valuing the universal, not valuing the love of the stranger as well, or the respect and granting dignity to all people and all culture. The Torah believes in that as well. But the Torah also believes that every individual, an individual culture, individual religion, should be proud of who they uniquely are. And it's only in that pride, and more than pride, it's only in that celebration, and I'm going to use the word indulgence. I don't mean that in a negative way, but I mean it's by indulging in who we are, particularly, that we can then truly have those universal values. And so when Korach, just full circle, bring it back to the parasha, when Korach comes to Moshe, Korach to Moses, and he says, that's not a double play, but when he comes to Moses and he says to him, hey, the entire people are holy. Why are you elevating yourself above God's people? Like, who died and made you, I'm paraphrasing, right? And made you boss. Like, why? There shouldn't be any bosses anyway. Moses' response, as we saw from the Medrash, and we've been consistent with this point. Just as there is night and day, and there's distinction, and there's value to night, and there's value to day, there's value in individualism and individuality. There's value in diversity. You want a world in which everybody's the same, in which there's no leadership, there's no hierarchy to any extent, there's nothing to look up to or aside to or down to, there's no difference, no distinction. That world is not as utopian as you think. You think that would be the end, that would solve all problems. That would not solve all problems. That would only introduce more problems and new problems. And some of those problems being that suddenly we don't even know what universal means because we have no template of particularism to then hold up against the universal. If we don't know what it means to respect one culture, how can we respect all cultures? That's the point. If you can't respect your own culture, how are you going to seek to respect someone else's culture? And so obviously the takeaway from tonight is not anyone thinking that they are better than anyone else and putting someone and devaluing the other and putting the other one down. That's not at all the message of tonight. The message of tonight is simply this: a world of erasing distinction is not the world that God created. God did not erase distinction. He penned it in. He literally embedded distinction within his world. He could have created a world, says Pirkei Avot, chapter 5, Mishnah 1. He could have created a world with one utterance. He could have created a world without division, without difference, without distinction. He did not do so. He created a world with distinction, with diversity, with individuality. And he did that for a reason. And the reason is that each one of us should know that we matter. Each one of us should know that we have a mission, that we should take care of our families and then our communities and then the larger world. But it starts that way. It starts from the individual and then fans outward. And so, my friends, as we think about the subtle cues and clues around us that encourage us to just be like everyone else. And the calls, again, sometimes very subtle, to renounce our humanity in favor of the machine, whatever. And there are different ways in which that's manifest. Not going to do a deep dive right now as we conclude. Let us remember that it is our humanity that God most deeply desires and granted us. And we know he desires it because he granted it to us. If he didn't want it, it wouldn't be this way. God wants us to revel in our individuality, not at the expense of others, but alongside others reveling in their individuality. And a world in which people can be proudly individualistic and respectful of each other is a world truly worthy of being called God's world. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Torah Studies, thank you for that. Very kind. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, if you're interested in reading more of that, I would highly recommend, first of all, anything that Rabbi Sachs wrote, including the book that we quoted extensively from tonight, The Dignity of Difference. The Dignity of Difference, certainly a worthwhile book.
What about this? He who is wise. I always heard it was he who is satisfied with what he has.
Also,
and this is who sees what is born.
Yeah.
Both are.
I left us, so we didn't have a chance to go through the third section of tonight's class. All right, listen, we'll discuss that offline.
Okay.
But the point is this: the third act of tonight's class would have thrown everything in reverse. I'm kidding, but we'll leave that. Okay, so the point was made. So my blessing for all of us is, again, that we should respect ourselves, and then respect the individual in the other guy as well. And so when we do that we can truly get along from a place of authenticity, not from a fake place of eroding differences. So in short, John Lennon's version of a perfect world, a world in which there's no difference between people, a world in which, I don't even know the lyrics off by heart, but I think that's kind of what he's saying, the upshot, right? Imagine that world. I don't know. Is that a better world? Probably not. A world in which you can have distinction and respect. That's a cool world. So humanity over machines. Machines being a stand-in for obliterating what makes us unique. So let's be pro-human. Good to see you all this evening. Oh, quick announcement. Very important announcement. You have it here on the back of the handouts. This weekend, we're gearing up for the 30th yard site of Lubavitcher Rebbe's, a very, very auspicious occasion, a very momentous occasion. And so this Shabbat at CBT, Bet Tefillah, there's going to be a full program of inspiration and good food. Talks by a visiting scholar in residence, Rabbi Ari Sollish, who's visiting from Northern California, actually. He's Chabad of the Tri-Valley. Larry, I don't know if you know Rabbi Ari Sollish, but he is somewhere in the vicinity of Northern California. My understanding is that
I know him well, and he came to the Tri-Valley about 20 years ago. And
yeah,
he's in the process of building a magnificent shul and mikveh.
There you go. All right. So Rabbi Resnick will be making the cross-country journey to Atlanta to be here for this Shabbat in preparation for the third day of Tammuz, the Rebbe's 30th yard site. And there's a talk Friday night. There are multiple talks Shabbat morning, Shabbat afternoon, a lavish sit-down Kiddush. Everything is open to the community. You can RSVP. You don't have to RSVP. Just show up and enjoy the inspiration and the good food, the fellowship, and it's going to be a very impactful evening. We are all not evening, but weekend. We're also planning a special program Sunday morning, again with Rabbi Resnick speaking and showing some videos. His father, in particular, had a very unique relationship with the Rebbe when the Rebbe had a heart attack in 1978, massive heart attack on Simchat Torah. So Rabbi Resnick's father was a cardiologist in New York, in the Bronx, and he was one of the doctors that tended to the Rebbe at that time and really nursed the Rebbe back to health, and had a very close relationship with the Rebbe. So the rabbi who's coming, his father, very respected cardiologist, Dr. Resnick, and his mother was a NBC anchor woman or broadcaster. So he comes for, his mother was in TV, father was a doctor, he's a rabbi. What's a nice Jewish boy becoming a rabbi? Who does that? But anyway, so that's we're watching, hang out with. But he'll be sharing this over the weekend as well as Sunday. It's worth it to come by, no matter when you're here. Friday night, Shabbat morning, Sunday morning, come by, get some inspiration. We'll share some good food and good vibes. All right, we'll see you Shabbos. Stay tuned. Oh, I have to mention this. We have a lot of stuff coming up, a ton of stuff coming up. We're going to do a new course on hot button election topics. I know what you're thinking. We're doing it. We're going to do a course on life and death issues, life, death, and the afterlife, heaven and hell, etc. We've done it before. We're doing it again.
Sounds like the election.
Sounds right. Yes, I'm reincarnation. Yeah, haven't we been here before? Yes, exactly. We've seen this play out every 4 years. Make it stop. Right. So that is going on. And other stuff. And we have some special speakers coming in. So stay tuned. But I hope everyone gets the email. We have to speak about emails. Okay, I think that's it.
Yes, Korach. It was a great class.
Thank you. Jay, welcome back. Welcome back to Jay. We've missed you for a few weeks. Jay was out of town. Good to have you back. Good to have you here live, and good to see everybody.
I wasn't in Tokyo. I was in Tokyo.
I know, Tokyo Hills. It's a little further. Go to Tokyo Hills and keep on going, and you'll get to Tokyo. Exactly.
And your 21st wedding anniversary.
Oh, yes, this is true. That is true. Right. My Leah and I, our 21st wedding anniversary.
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, 20. I feel like 21 is for.
Aren't y'all in your 20s?
Yeah, I feel like.
Is it today?
No. The anniversary is Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, the first day of Tammuz, which is coming up on. Hold on.
Sunday.
Up on
Sunday.
Sunday. Yes, correct. Sunday. Next Sunday is our anniversary. So come celebrate or let's be inspired together. All right. Good to see you all. Laila Tov. And we'll see you very soon.
Danny, good seeing you.
Lila Tov.
Everybody, Laila Tov.